for everybody to join, and then we will start this webinar. If you want to, people who have joined us thus far, you can always write a question in your chat box, and then we can answer it in real time. So we'll just wait one more minute and then we'll get started. So I think I know all the people who are attending except for one person who's on the phone. Thank you everybody for coming and joining us. I really appreciate that. We're going to be talking about PNM's Energy Redevelopment Bond Act that they have pre-filed. It's called SB 47 in this 2018 legislative session. So we'll give it one more minute, literally, and then we'll begin. I will just tell you that for anybody who's interested in following some of the articles that have been printed about this, I'm happy to send those out to people afterwards. So there's been a fair amount that have been that has been in the press already. And hi, new people who are joining us. With just about 30 more seconds, and then we'll officially begin this webinar. We will have available not only a petition, and we have a letter to legislators that is available, but we will also have a chronology of the press that has been becoming more and more interested in this subject. And so there's been both utility sort of blog press, but also the Santa Fe New Mexican and Albuquerque Journal and other local papers. There's some things that will be being written about in the Las Cruces and Silver City papers as well. So I think that we're going to get started here. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mariel Nanasi. I think almost all of you know who I am. I'm the Executive Director of New Energy Economy, and today we're going to be talking about PNM's pre-filed bill. It's SB 47, PNM Securitization Bill. It's called the Energy Redevelopment Bond Act. So there are a number of slides, and we'll be talking and looking at the slides at the same time. And then also, I'm just reminding all the people who just joined us that you are welcome to write a question, and then I can answer it in real time. Okay, so here we go. Thanks everybody again. So what is securitization? It is enabling legislation that will allow PNM to assess the value of the stranded or failed asset and impose a corresponding surcharge on each ratepayer sufficient to recover the remaining value of the asset. That's like a lot of jargon. So let me break it down. Here's what's happened. PNM had planned on their books to keep San Juan running till 2053. Now, first of all, that first assumption is problematic because, in fact, the plant is already 45 years old, and no plants run past maybe at the outset 50 years, 60 years, but no plant runs for 85 years. No coal plant does, at least that we know of. No plant has ever run that long. So for them to have put it on their books and claimed it as a financial asset, meaning that they were expecting to make hundreds of millions of dollars from us, the ratepayers, until 2053 is already problematic. Not problematic for us, problematic that PNM would rely on such a thing in order to boost its financial positioning. So it's already from the start, the assumption that they have made that they were going to make money till 2053 off of San Juan is a problematic decision on their part. So when we talk about, or when they talk about, stranded assets or failed assets, it's really their reliance on uneconomic investment in what will be an abandoned plant. So it's important that we don't actually even refer to this as stranded assets, or very sorry, I will take that out of here. That because we don't want to use their language. These are not investments that have been made. They are assets that are on their books such that they want to recoup that profit. But there is no guarantee that they are allowed to get those profits. So now let's dig down deeper into what stranded asset clarification means. Stranded asset refers to the value of assets that are prematurely abandoned or retired. The value is determined by the undepreciated value remaining for the expected life of the asset. That's what I was talking about before. Does P&M have the right, in real terms, to base their financial expectations on assets till 2053, and specifically assets that are failing? So today, P&M San Juan plant only runs about 75% of the time in good years. Sometimes it's as low as 65, 67% of the time. So it's already an older plant that is in need of help just to prop it up to keep it working. So the expected life is really probably till 2022. And it should have been depreciated out till 2022, but not till 2053, because even though, and so P&M says that they have what's called a certificate of convenience and necessity. That means that P&M has a permit to run it till 2053, but that's not the same as the expected life of that coal plant. When there have been times in the past in New Mexico when there has been a decision to close a plant early, the PRC has followed the Public Utility Act. The Public Utility Act is state law, and the state law says that the PRC must balance the interests of investors, in this case P&M Invest, and ratepayers. And they use that when they've made prior decisions about stranded assets and awarding them. So, for instance, in the last San Juan case, when EPA told them you have to close down San Juan early, P&M asked for 100% stranded assets, and the PRC said, no, we have to follow the Public Utility Act, and that there has to be sharing of the burden and splitting between ratepayers on the one hand and investors on the other hand. But that happens only when there is an external cause, so something that was unexpected. And so you could argue, and P&M did argue, that, you know what, the EPA made us do this, or some other kind of external cause might be an unexpected boiler that breaks, and it would be hundreds of millions of dollars, and so to fix it, and so there might be a decision between the utility and the regulatory agency and the other stakeholders that say, you know what, instead of putting more money, throwing more good money after bad, let's close this plant and not invest in a new boiler, for instance. So that's an external cause that was unexpected, or yeah, so it was unexpected, and so therefore, in those circumstances, there is a sharing of the cost. But here, there is no sharing of the cost, possibly. Why? Because there is no external cause. The reason PNM, this is very important, the reason PNM is closing the San Juan plant, there are 3 reasons. One is it is no longer economic, which means that San Juan, compared to solar and wind, can't compete. Solar and wind are cheaper, and the law is at the PRC that you have to choose the most cost-effective resource among feasible alternatives. So if the first reason is, in this case, that they're going to close it, is because of the plant being uneconomic. The second reason is because all other utilities at San Juan, maybe except for City of Farmington, want to close it. They want to get out. So that's a second reason. That's a very important reason, because PNM is a 60% owner, but that means it would have to absorb all those other shares in San Juan to keep it going. And they're not going to do that because it's uneconomic. But the third reason, and this might be the most important reason, is that PNM's own board of directors has already determined, hey, we can make more money closing San Juan. And so we're going to do that because they think that they're going to make more money in what the replacement power is. So they have made this decision. So this is not an external cause that requires a 50-50 balancing, sharing of the burden. So PNM, if it were to go in front of the PRC, might not only not get, definitely won't get 100% stranded asset recovery, but might not even get 50% stranded asset recovery. And that's why, that is the reason that they are going in front of the legislature, because they want to get 100% of their profits that they wish they would have made, and also that they wish they would have made. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So we'll skip that. So that's why they're going to the legislature. They want to get 100% stranded assets instead of 50, and they might not even get 50%. There you go. Sorry about that. What is PNM asking with this bill? PNM is asking for $353 million to cover the costs of closing down San Juan, to be paid 100% by ratepayers, which is the money that they expected to make if the plant were to stay open till 2053. There's other parts of this bill that are very concerning. The second thing is that they want to own all the replacement power. So what does that mean? What it means is that PNM is going to be closing down San Juan, and they're going to have replacement power. PNM wants a gas plant up in Four Corners. We want 100% renewables plus battery storage. The gas plant, according to PNM, will hire three full-time employees. That is what they said in writing in response to a bench request asking them, how many employees does a natural gas plant employ if it were to be sited at the San Juan generating station? And their answer was 3. So compare that to solar, wind, and battery storage, where there would be hundreds of people employed, maybe even thousands. So obviously, for a lot of reasons, we would rather have renewable energy than gas. The other thing is, why do we want PNM to own all the replacement power? We don't. And here's the reason why. When PNM owns its assets, they make an automatic 9.575%. Let's call it 10% to make it easy. Okay? So on top of, no matter what they do, whether it's solar or gas, if they own it, they get a 10% return on it. And if they get a 10% return on it, then annually, then it's got to be cheaper, because nobody else is allowed to guarantee their profit like that. So that's one reason. The other reason is look at why Colorado's economy is booming. Yes, of course, because of marijuana, but the other reason is because of all the renewable energy businesses. So it's not just one business, one monopoly owned business it in Colorado, which is the Public Service Company of Colorado, but there are literally dozens of renewable energy companies that are vying for the cheapest sources of energy and the best. So that competition provides lower cost for ratepayers. It will do. I see that the TV or whatever, this video thing goes in and out, but hopefully it won't be too problematic. The other thing that it will do is it removes all authority from the Public Regulation Commission. Now, the legislature established the Public Regulation Commission under the Public Utility Act. And so now this bill would gut that. And I know we've had problems with the PRC, and there's plenty to discuss about that. But the fact is that the PRC does have rules and regulations and does have established protocols like hearings where people and entities like New Energy Economy and others challenge the validity of PNM's claims. And this bill would undermine all of that and would just basically say that PRC would essentially be just empowered to rubber stamp whatever PNM wants, and that's including costs, both in terms of the failed asset or uneconomic investment recovery. It also means in terms of replacement power. So they could go in and say, we want a gas plant in Farmington, and it's going to cost $180 million, and the PRC essentially just, unless it's like fraud, they have to just accept it. Why are they going to the legislature? They are afraid if they go to the PRC, they might get nothing. As I said before, they might get at most 50% because of that burden I was talking to you about sharing. But they also might nothing. They might get nothing because they're not closing it because of an external cause. They're closing it because it doesn't make financial sense for ratepayers. They probably will get something, but they you can't talk to me right now. You cannot talk to me right now. But they will definitely not get anything more than 50%. Sorry for that interruption. But they want also to preempt the discovery process and challenges around a whole host of other issues. So this bill, which is essentially a blank check to PNM, because it doesn't say specifically that it's only for San Juan. It could be for Four Corners. It could be including the remediation or decommissioning. It could be a whole host of things. It is not defined as specifically just for the uneconomic investments in San Juan. And they don't want a whole discovery process and challenges around remediation and economic recovery. So let's talk about PNM's framing versus the truth. They say that the Energy Redevelopment Act will save ratepayers money. We know that that's not true, and now I'm going to ask you to dive deeper into the actual money that's at stake. So PNM, it's true that PNM this legislation could save ratepayers money, but that's only if they got 100% recovery at the PRC. So what they are comparing is the $353 million at 9.575%, and the $353 million at a bond rate of 3 to 4%. But as we discussed before, that's not the appropriate comparison. The appropriate comparison is $353 million at 3 or 4%, or essentially $175 million at 9.575%. So 50% at PRC and 100% at the legislature, with those differing interest rates, it is cheaper for ratepayers to go to the PRC and get 50% even at the higher interest rate. And ratepayers, by the way, we've done the calculations, and I'm happy to send you those. And the ratepayer by about $50 to $70 million, depending on the percentage of the bond rate. So, and you also know that P&M says, oh, this will enable P&M to close San Juan, but that decision has already been made, and it's been made in their actual PRC filings. It's been made in the press. It is uncontroverted, frankly, at this point, that they are going to be closing San Juan in 2022. So I think that we have discussed already, but I want to focus on really the last bullet here, but we'll just go over them all. At the PRC, P&M could get nothing because their poor depreciation planning, meaning that they have it out depreciated, the plan to depreciate it out till 2053, is ridiculous, because the average life of the coal plant is 45 years, not 85 years. So we've discussed that. And they always, by the way, have the right to go in front of the PRC and ask them to reduce their depreciation schedule. The other thing is poor economic planning. Los Alamos and Arizona Public Service, who are other co-owners at San Juan, have already stated publicly that they're going to be out in 2022, and in fact they're planning, and their replacement power plan, both of them as a matter of fact, is solar plus storage. The other thing is, in 2015, Farmington was going to buy 65 megawatts of the San Juan plant, but they decided not to do it. Even zero cost, like $0, pay $0, just take the coal shares from California, who was exiting at the time. And Farmington decided, no, we don't even want to absorb those excess unwanted coal shares, because they believed at that time, even at $0, that it would cost them more to have those 65 megawatts. Why? Because of weak reclamation and decommissioning responsibilities, because of litigation risk, because of other environmental risks, including pollution controls. They decided, no, we don't even want those coal shares for $0. So this should not be $350 million that we pay P&M. We know that these coal shares are potentially worthless, or even worse, costly. They are full of risk and liability. Why did they have this plant depreciated out till 2053? So the last bullet is very important. They run their business like a credit card company. And what does that mean? That means that if you have a $1,000 credit card bill, and you know this, if you pay $20 on it, you owe $980 plus a lot of interest. and then you pay another $20, and then you pay another $20, but really you're paying a lot of money for the use of that $1,000. Well, P&M runs their assets like a utility company. They don't want us to pay for them all at once. Why? Because then once those are paid off, they don't get that 10% return on equity. And so they would prefer us not to have paid, which we didn't pay, all of San Juan's costs during the time we're using it. And so that has benefited them economically. So this is a little bit wonky, but the $353 million includes that 65 megawatts that City of Farmington didn't want to purchase and P&M inherited. And in the final order, in case 13390 on December 16th, 2015, it stated that that 65 megawatts is not to be included in any costs that ratepayers are supposed to incur. As a matter of fact, they're currently losing money. P&M is losing money on that 65 megawatts because the City of Farmington didn't want it, so they inherited it. The hearing examiner called P&M, they are the owner of last resort, and P&M shareholders own it. So this $350 million actually includes $33 million for that 65 megawatts and should be excluded. Why do we oppose P&M's position? They are asking us to give them a blank check and allow them to secure the finances before they've even made their case. When have you ever seen that, where they are allowed to go before the legislature before they've even proved that A, they're going to get to be abandoned? I think that they will get to abandon it, but they haven't even filed that case in front of the PRC. And then when they abandon it, there's going to be lots of questions. There's questions about replacement power, questions about workers' rights, questions about other reparations, including the toxic cleanup of that plant. So there's a whole host of issues that need to be vetted through a PRC process, and then we decide how much P&M is entitled to, if anything. But to do it beforehand is premature. We've gone over this before. They want to own 100% of the replacement power and determine the source without any regulatory oversight, including the costs of those sources. And we've talked about the San Juan gas plant, and we're also talking about that they are attempting to circumvent the regulatory process, but not only the regulatory process, but the laws that define consumer protections. I just want to tell you who is sponsoring this bill. So that's Jacob Candelaria, Senator Candelaria, and Senator Neville. And in the Senate, and in the House, they have Bobby Gonzalez. So all our friends in the House, we need to definitely touch base with. If this legislation is passed, which with your help we will defeat it, it will preclude demands for a just transition. So as I've already mentioned, there are a number of worker and community reparations that need to be considered. There's cleanup, and it's significant. What I understand is that the coal ash, which is the waste that is just like ash in your fireplace, once the coal is burned, there's a whole lot of coal ash. Right now, it is just dumped back into the coal mine. And what I understand is that it's leaking into the San Juan River. So this is very significant because coal ash is enormously toxic. And so that's part of this whole vetting process. We have to understand what's the level of pollution to protect our neighbors up in San Juan and for all the people who depend on the San Juan River for its for resources, whether it's agriculture or drinking water. We also need to to determine what's the beneficial reuse for this site. We are very much in support of having replacement power be at this site. Why? Because we already know it's a toxic waste dump. And so it first needs to be cleaned up, and then there needs to be some other resources. We would like it to be many hundreds of megawatts of solar, with the current workers who are employed both at the mine and the plant getting first choice to work on that renewable replacement power. We've talked about how that will help the renewable energy market. The other thing about that, it's important, I should just say, about putting the renewable power at that site is the transmission lines already exist, and so that